Hey everyone, Chloe here, and welcome back to another video and another necessary grown-up conversation. And if you are a new subscriber to this platform, then hello and hi and welcome. So I wanted to speak on a continually triggering topic for women, particularly Black women who are single, unmarried, or who are child-free, whether by choice or not by choice, starring both Pastor Jamal Bryant and most recently the gospel singer, husband and father, Mr. Sir Kirk Franklin. Now, for house cleaning purposes, everybody knows that the devaluation of single women, stressed out single mothers, and aging women has become a huge money-making humiliation machine on social media, as there is no corner of the internet or the red pill manosphere, whether black, white, or in between, or the Pick Me Boots channels that support them, that isn't hell-bent on destroying, devaluing, and humiliating women every hour on the hour. And quite frankly, the taunting, the clowning, and the harassing of unmarried women and single mothers has become fever pitch and is pretty inescapable at this point. But when it comes to the relevancy of the Black church and single women, there seems to be an increasing pressure on the church to address their chronically single congregants. And there seems to be more and more of a growing pressure for the church to begin to speak to women's dating and marriage issues and to come up with some solutions, some answers, and some stronger talking points on how to better address a conversation that seems to be on every podcast's mind. And that is the chronically single woman crisis that is aggressively plaguing women of all ages and nationalities, and in particular Black women who have been plagued with being chronically single for decades upon decades due to our own unique historical background as a marginalized group. But let's first take a listen to Pastor Jamal.
30% of all divorces are Black people.
Yes.
16% are Latino. This is the largest amount of single Black women post-slavery. And so here's the disconnect nobody's talking about. The largest demographic of those who are single are educated, high-achieving Black women. And so I know you done found Chef Boyardee, but everybody else is at Cookout and Chick-fil-A drive-thru. Black women who are single and did, here it is, everything the church told them to do. They went and got degrees.
Mm-hmm.
They are walking every day. They drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
They done pull pork it out of their diet. They saving. They go to midweek Bible study. It's still not happening.
Now, again, for house cleaning purposes, because a lot of y'all are unhinged and a lot of y'all love to tussle, but the clips that you will be watching in this video are anecdotal. That means that they are Pastor Jamal's and Mr. Kirk Franklin's opinions and their opinions alone. And I also need to remind you that their opinions are not reflective of all men. And for those of you who are tuning in, please make it your business to understand that these clips are not an entire complex conversation and that these clips are not a solution to world hunger, nor are they going to bring you a husband tomorrow. But it does open up the door to a conversation on how to unpack the constant shaming, the roasting, and the weaponization, and to answer the question, does shaming single women work? Does shaming and humiliating women for being unmarried or childless make women better marriage material? Or does it force them to make horrible choices in men based on shame? So let's take a listen to what Mr. Franklin has expressed about the value of single women in the church, and I will be back with the rest of my commentary.
That marriage has been weaponized in Western Christianity. Giving has been weaponized in Western Christianity. Sexuality has been weaponized. For example, any woman listening to this can attest in our culture. Don't be no 30, 35-year-old single Black woman and go to the family reunion. All the older women are going to do nothing. They're going to look at you and wonder, why you not married?
Where your man at? Where your kids at?
Like it's a prerequisite for identity and value. That if you don't have a man, if you don't have kids, that something about you is broken. Do you understand how dysfunctional these messages are?
Yeah.
And how we super spiritualize these messages. Paul said, but marriage is a necessary distraction. I have many friends that were in ministry at church, and the church has told them, if you're going to be in ministry, you can't be single. We're not going to let you work with the youth ministry if you're single. And so what people do, they quickly get married thinking that they're fulfilling God's will for their lives, but they are fulfilling man's dogma. You can be single and be used by God. You can be single and have purpose. Being married is not a prerequisite for God's hand on your life. It is not, but we've weaponized it. And then crucify people. Where my camera at?
Right
and
there.
And then crucify people when those same marriages don't.
Damn!
So as you can see, what Mr. Franklin is saying is not earth-shattering, groundbreaking news. Of course, as a single woman, you are worthy and can and will be used in the eyes of God. But the messages, whether from Pastor Bryant or from Mr. Kirk Franklin, are important. One, because people tend to listen more when men speak, especially women. And because of the weight of Mr. Franklin's fame and his influence, people will be more inclined to be persuaded by his messaging of the wrongness of weaponizing single. What's important to note with what Mr. Kirk Franklin is saying is that he is sharing his opinions as a spiritual person, as an enlightened person, which fire and brimstone religious people tend to hate, as they are the ones who are most inclined to weaponize, to shame, and they are the ones who are most likely to cherry pick the Bible verses that suit their narrative. Because the basic common sense messaging that he is trying to say here is that we are all valuable and equally important in the eyes of God, whether single, whether married, divorced, baby mamas, or child-free. Pick your label. The problem is that societal-wise, how women are valued by God is not the issue. The issue is how horrible that human beings can be to each other, especially men, when it comes to the status and the stature that comes with marriage and a family, and when women don't have it. In spite of what we know about lopsided numbers when it comes to attracting quality wives and husbands. That is where things tend to take a rough turn, and where societally women are horribly judged and devalued by both men and women, and where things tend to turn into nasty work. So in this video, the question now becomes, what does the Black church do about this online bullying and humiliation that is driving women to believe that they are forever cursed or useless as single women? Or that is driving women to get on bended knee to propose to men, or that is driving women to propose to themselves.
Me closer to the suburb when we go out. You see me in everything you.
Or that is driving women to be in relationships with men who live in shelters. Or that is driving women into Risa Tisa situations. Or that is driving women into having online meltdowns. Or that is driving women into the arms of bottom shelf men of all races for the sake of saying that they are married. And unfortunately, the church does a very poor job of addressing those weaponized everyday pressures that come with being unmarried, especially when a woman is over 35, which is exactly why I started my platform as a feminine educational source, because women are unfortunately nastily labeled, they are judged, they are harassed, they are called old maids and leftover women and spinsters and cat ladies, and are labeled as washed up and damaged goods, just to name a few metaphors. But with the church, when it comes to addressing their male congregants, the males are never ever shamed or called out for not being husband material. They are never ever shamed for being unmarried by a certain age. They are never ever called out to task for not being leaders of their families. And only recently are men, particularly black men, are being held to task for not being providers and protectors. And for the first time in their lives, many men, particularly black men, are being called to task to fully step into their masculine, and it is ruffling their feathers, and it is wholesale baffling them that so many women have awakened to their divine feminine, that they are no longer interested in coddling men who live in shelters. Many black women are no longer interested in the draining dynamics of being a man's surrogate mother, and black women have definitely full out have lost their interest in being substitute mascots for masculinity. So those days are over and done with, and they are no longer interested in rushing to marry bums and bottom shelf men, which is a recipe for a horrible hypogamous marriage. And they are no longer interested in the Tyler Perry struggle love of men who in the past were only expected to pay the light bill. But the question in the meantime is, will the church begin to speak to these issues in real and meaningful ways? And what is the Black church going to do to address the needs of unmarried black women moving forward, besides giving black women the stagnant chicken dinner speech to pray and patiently wait for a husband that may not ever show up? Because turns out that type of cliched advice is getting black women nowhere fast. So ladies and lurkers, to get this conversation started, does the Black church want to keep Black women single? Do you agree with Mr. Kirk Franklin? And instead of shaming women, should the church be teaching men how to be better providers, protectors, and leaders in the coming future? And finally, will society ever stop bashing women for being single and unmarried? And as always, I thank you for listening, I thank you for watching, and I thank you for subscribing to our Soft Power community. And please stay tuned for more videos to come, and I will catch up with you ladies and lurkers and ear hustlers in the next one.
I don't feel like society promotes marriage. I think society promotes dating and it promotes weddings. It doesn't promote the idea of being in a committed long-term relationship that surpasses our immediate wants and needs for right now. I think it's quite interesting because the narratives of like podcasts, of social media, of the internet as a whole promotes a lot of like individualism, and it doesn't encourage us to, one, work on ourselves, but two, also stick it out with people so that they grow and change and develop. We see people talking about needing to leave a relationship, but we never see people talk about the fruits of a successful relationship. And because we live in a society where everything is so short term, it means that the way we view marriage and monogamous long-term relationships is also affected. I think there's a reason why we're seeing certain patterns happen, and we need to address it if we want to see change and if we don't want to see things passed down to our kids and the next generation.
Why do we want women to be insecure? It's very simple. Have you seen a woman who knows her worth? She is very inconvenient. She has high standards. She doesn't buy things to fix herself, and she won't let you project your traumas onto her because she doesn't fear being alone. It's a lot of work to keep up with a woman like that if you haven't healed. And since society is still operating from a very low standard, we prefer women to be functions, not humans. We want them to be insecure. Look at the shelves of any store, and you will see products continually teaching women that she's never enough, that something's constantly wrong with her smell, with her hair, with her body, with her humanity. They're going to tell you that the clock is ticking, that you're going to spoil like rotten milk. Most of girls start hearing things like this before they're even 8 years old. And a woman who's had enough of it will be always winning the emotional battles. She will be fiercely protecting herself from all of this nonsense. And thank God women are waking up and stepping into their strength, because nothing will ever change for our daughters or the next generation if we don't leave our insecurities behind.